They're sounding the alarm. They are so dismayed. They are so uncomfortable. Guys, USA Today ringing that village alarm bell. The DOJ, the gun rights activists, and the Supreme Court, they are coming to undermine all the gun control. Yeah, that's not a bug, that's a feature. We're going to walk through the entire thing right now. Everything will be linked in the description box below. I cannot wait to hear what you guys think. And of course, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell on if you want to defeat that YouTube algorithm, and make sure you don't get the message that this Freedom Channel sends out, stymied by their gun control desires. You make sure you do all of those things. All right, guys, listen. That was an amped up, energetic intro. Let's get into the story here. At Braden LOA, follow me on X, where we explore all of these things. And I'm doing this quickly because we have got to talk about the details. Just messed it up. The details that they are very concerned about. Look at this. The Trump DOJ wants Supreme Court to bring down the hammer on gun rules. Oh, goodness gracious. Can you imagine an administration on the conservative side of the aisle who tends to lean towards the gun rights thing, wants the Supreme Court to bring down the hammer on gun rule? Oh my God. Well, let's dive in. And if you haven't picked this up, this episode's going to have a heavy dose of sarcasm because I have got to walk you through all of this. All right. After the Supreme Court in 2022 made it harder to restrict who can arm themselves in public, some states took a different approach. Now, of course, they're talking about the Bruen decision, that whole thing that New York's Sullivan Law got their hand slapped, and they basically went from may issue to shall issue across the United States. That's what they're representing, or referencing rather. 5 Democrat-led, mostly densely populous states passed laws that prohibit bringing a handgun onto someone else's property without that person's express consent. Now, the Trump administration wants the Supreme Court to declare that such rules in Hawaii, California, New York, Maryland, and New Jersey violate the Constitution. I can't imagine why that would be. Couldn't be that it violates the Constitution that they want you to say it violates the Constitution. That is weird. Anyway, let's keep on going because they got a lot more issues with all the other things that are coming down the pike because, again, we're only 6 months in. Quote, the United States has a substantial interest in the preservation of the right to keep and bear arms and in the proper interpretations of the Second Amendment. Solicitor General John Sauer wrote in explaining why the Department of Justice wants the High Court to weigh in. That's not the only example of how the change in administrations is affecting litigation over gun regulations. See, this is the way that they do this, guys. I'm sure you're familiar. They'll introduce something that seems as couched common sense and this aggression by Republicans. Ben Shapiro always likes to reference the Republicans pounce. You know, that whole thing. They always do this. Really, really big emotional, and look what the Republicans are doing. It says shall not be infringed. It doesn't say shall only infringe if you feel good about it. Let's keep on going. The Justice Department stopped defending federal handgun rule in a move alarming to groups working to prevent gun violence. Those are called gun control groups. The DOJ declined to continue to defend a federal law setting 21 as the minimum age to own a handgun after an appeals court ruled the restriction unconstitutional. For the government to step back and say, hey, here's a major piece of federal firearms legislation that was passed by Congress. We're just not going to bother to defend it any longer. That's a really, really significant thing, says Esther Sanchez Gomez, litigation director for Giffords Law Center. Well, color me shocked. All right. So first of all, let's just hit the obvious elephant in the room on this one. So 21 is the minimum age to own a handgun. Is 21 the minimum age to vote or be enlisted in the military? How about a mortgage? How about anything that is adulting in the United States? Nope, it's 18. So why is it 21 to own a handgun when it literally is one of the Bill of Rights amendments, the Second Amendment? Why? Because that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but don't worry. They're undermining congressional law. Yeah. So there's checks and balances on this whole thing. And I would also like to bring you back to, remember that whole thing with Biden? You know, like years ago? I mean, like, good Lord, so long ago, it doesn't even exist? Yeah. 6 months ago. You remember when that whole thing about them not enforcing laws and, you know, what, it rhymes with schmenctuary schmitties. Oh my God. Oh, look at that. That's weird. Because when it comes to sanctuary cities or immigration or having the border open, it's perfectly fine not to enforce law. That is their executive purview. But when it comes to those Second Amendment rights, oh my God, they are not doing what Congress has asked. The disingenuous nature here is enough to backslap the microphone in front of me. But anyway, let's keep on going. And by the way, let me know if you guys are enjoying the higher energy delivery here. Now, the DOJ has also told the Supreme Court that the federal government no longer opposes all aspects of the Missouri law blocked by lower courts after the Biden administration and others challenged it that would penalize state police for enforcing federal gun control laws. That is the SAPA, the Second Amendment Preservation Act. Again, they aren't going to tell you what it is. They're just going to kind of be very vague with what they're referencing. Quote, this is the first time we've seen a Justice Department really actively fight for the Second Amendment rights of all Americans, said Hannah Hill, Vice President of National Foundation for Gun Rights. And if you aren't following Hannah, at Hannah Hill SC, I believe is her handle on X, you should. She's on it. Hill said it's taken the administration longer than she hoped to take a stand, and her group is eager for President Donald Trump to repeal federal regulations, including rules on untraceable ghost guns that the Supreme Court upheld in March. But you're seeing a slow pivot of a massive ship back toward the Constitution, she said, and I'm extremely encouraged by the trajectory. So, even NAGR sees where this is going. Giffords.org is amazingly, insanely dismayed. NAGR goes, okay, I see you. Let's keep on turning this train. All the while, the DOJ is effectively either changing the stances on things or they're just not enforcing things. That you're seeing it happen in real time. I'm objectively. But let's continue. I got to show you some other things here. The history of firearm use as a judge, particularly in connection with militia service, contradicts the premise that 18 to 20-year-olds are not covered by the plain text of the Second Amendment. U.S. Circuit Judge Edith Jones wrote for the court. In July, the DOJ told a lower court that the government is not going to appeal the decision of the Supreme Court. Good. They don't need to. This is one of the percolating issues that's going to be the most salient, in my opinion. 18, 19, and 20-year-olds are adults. Taking away their gun rights, that's kind of unconstitutional and easy on its face. I expect that one to be picked up if they don't get pushed to the Supreme Court level. It's incredibly unconstitutional. It is easy to see it's unconstitutional. But, again, time will tell. But let's continue, because this little blue part, if you are waiting for the big payoff on this video, this is it. In its brief supporting a challenge to Hawaii's law prohibiting the carrying of handguns onto someone else's property without their consent, the government said that the rule effectively nullifies the general right to carry a gun in public that the court upheld in 2022. Now, you're talking about like private property like malls or like gas stations or restaurants, stuff like that. So that's what they're referencing here. Someone carrying a firearm for self-defense cannot run errands without fear of criminal sanctions, Sauer told the court. Again, that's the Solicitor General. That's the government. Sanchez Gomez, that same woman for Giffords, the litigation director for the Giffords Law Center, said property owners have always had the ability to restrict weapons, but Hawaii's law makes the default that handguns aren't allowed unless there's express permission, rather than that they are allowed unless expressly prohibited. When the courts limited states' control over who could publicly carry guns, she said, the focus turned to where in public they could bring them. That's so saying the quiet part out loud. They can't do the gun control that they want. They can't get what they want on the government, so then they go to private banning. That's exactly what they want. So the focus turned to where in public they could bring them. Let me translate that. The Bruen decision smacked us and said we may issue a concealed carry permit if you're a good person or if you pay a lot of money or you're particularly special. So the Supreme Court smoked that from orbit in that landmark decision, the Bruen decision. So then we just changed it. So sure, you can have the gun and you can have the concealed carry, but you can't have it in these public places and where we can go, i.e. sensitive places, transit stations, trains, public spaces, all of these things. This is the game, guys. It's the never-ending goalpost shifting that they always do. And Giffords.org just said the quiet part out loud. Honestly, like morons. The fact that we have these differing opinions across the country probably weighs even heavier in the Supreme Court's mind, he said. Still, McCourt said, it's relatively rare for the High Court to weigh in on gun laws. They often say no, he said. And this is what I wanted to wrap this video on almost. I'm going to wrap on this part. The Supreme Court very rarely takes up gun cases. That's a fact. So far, in the last 10 to 15 years, we've had about 4 or 5 pretty big cases. Heller, McDonald, Bruen, Rahimi, the Loper Enterprises cases, which is adjacent, but it has to do with ATF making rules through executive fiat. That's a lot of movement on something, and we've got even more coming. So, guys, I mean, like, the tide has changed. Are we winning 100% of the time? No, we're not. But are we more than 51%? Yes, we are. And in a casino, that wins every single time. Right here, they're talking about AR-15s coming up to be the next piece. And honestly, I think that they will in the next 2-3 years take it up. But time will tell on that one. But that's what I have for you guys on this one. They say the quiet part out loud. They don't like those guns. They're going to find a way to get any possible little tiny tweak to gun control they possibly can, because they got to have that control. It's like the magic that keeps the veins going of the gun control tyrants. And I will see you guys on the next one. Let me know what you think of this delivery style, and I will see you when we do the next one.